Now, this is really the point
This is
of the
really
episode.
when we're recording.
Yes, where I ask you if you've ever tried DMT.
Oh, well, I can neither confirm nor deny. What's happening in my drug use. Oh, greetings and salutations, and everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Snarp Fangle Podcast. I am your host, Jake Metzger, along with the guy who went on to write the famous album, Ain't No Twigs with My Woman Jezebel, the illustrious Mr. David.
You know what, Jake? I'm surprised you're a fan of that album.
Oh, really? Well, I've heard it only 7 times, and I think it's one of the greatest albums I've ever listened to in the form of emo country, David. So I was very happy to learn that you were the author of that album. How are you doing, good sir?
I'm doing all right.
Doing all right, and got your throat is working to capacity. I know mine wasn't for a long time. So
No, it was not.
You sound good to me.
You sounded like you were smoking 7 packs a day.
Oh God, it was bad, man. I was it was Batman, and it was Batman smoking. It was bad, man. It was really bad. So, there's a funny story I heard a long time ago, David. My sister worked at one of these CSU universities in California here, and she was in the English department, and this was when Supernatural was huge, the show. And there were some people that were very, very into the show, obviously, in this English department. One of these was a very rotund African-American woman, and she had a very wonderful spirit about her, attitude, just a great lady. And my sister had many great stories to tell of her. And one of those was when they were talking about Supernatural with her, and they finally discovered that they both liked the show. And this lady said, "Oh my goodness, you love Supernatural?" And so they started talking about it. And I can't believe she said this in front of my sister, but when they were talking about Supernatural, she's like, "Oh my Lord, if I had those 2 boys with me, I would take their shirts off and cover them in butter." This is an actual conversation that happened. And I was like, it always stuck in my mind that it's just she took a giant butter knife. Because I was a kid when I heard her tell me this. So the image of just slathering butter on these guys' abdomens is just stuck in my brain. So with that,
And I mean, who wouldn't want such imagery stuck in their brain?
yeah. So I know I had to share that with you because I've had it in my brain for all these years, and I think it's finally time to let everybody else know about it.
It's time to
give
it to the world.
Thus is the internet, you know. So anyway, welcome to an episode of Snarp Fangle, where we bring each a topic to the table, and we bring it to the congregation of you listening. And let us proceed with that first topic.
Wow.
David, let me tell you today, I want to talk about physical media / lost media. Because I remember when we were recording last time, I brought up a kind of an old YouTube clip where it was of this, what's it called? It was of this horrid, obscenely, terribly made song from this person that I have no memory of at this moment. You can go listen to that podcast. But anyway, this person basically was called Toenail. And it was a very famous, infamous video in the early 2010s, releasing just a little bit after Rebecca Black's Friday video. And it was it was called, "I Don't Want to Be a Crappy Housewife," right? And I know this is a random example, just bear with me. So it was parodied to no end and utter out of existence. It was parodied. And you know what? Brock's Dubs on YouTube made a wonderful parody of it, and I regaled you with that a short segment of that clip in last episode. And then I went and actually looked for this parody of his "I Don't Want to Be a Crappy Housewife." I mean, he has stuff like he incorporates like Raiden from Mortal Kombat is going after Toenail, and that's why those 2 generals were meeting. And it was like, "Raiden!" And like this guy was with Raiden, and he's like, "My head's a dolphin." Just really silly stuff, like just hilarity. You can't actually find that video anymore. I went on the YouTube. Sorry, I sound like I don't know, every 6-year-old out there. I went on the YouTube and I went ahead and I tried to look for this. I can't find it at all. I tried Vimeo. I tried everywhere. I went to the Wayback Machine, David.
That's what I was going to ask you, actually, is if you went to the Wayback Machine.
I did.
Because I have found
yeah,
some surprising things on the Wayback Machine.
Interesting. Now, before I ask you about what you found on the Wayback Machine, I went to his channel's page, somebody archived in 2013, and I saw the video listed there. I went through oldest of videos and I went to the bottom. I found it. It was like his 10th or 13th video he released, and it's privated at the moment. So when I click on it in the Wayback Machine even, it says, it's privated. You can't view it, which really, really sucks. So I've been this whole week, nearly every day, I've asked Adelaide, my sister, like, hey, do you have this video logged somewhere on a hard drive or a flash drive? Because I remember that's what we used to do all the time in those days. We would download videos from YouTube using that, real player downloader or video viewer you could use on Windows 7 and Vista. And I've not got a response, even though every time I ask her, she's like, I'm gonna have to look for it. It's on a thumb drive somewhere. I'll get some time to do it. Anyway, so this video is pristine YouTube gold, and you can't find it anymore. And I find that as a real bummer. But tell me, David, regale with me what you've actually found and been able to obtain through the Wayback Machine.
So I'm not going to speak to everything I've ever found on the Wayback Machine, but
LimeWire.
There was one time where I managed to find sheet music for a song on the Wayback Machine.
Oh.
Yeah. It's sort of just kind of like the idea to even look for it there just kind of like came to me out of the blue. And I was like, this is my time to shine. And surprisingly enough, I found it. So to give you some background, I was looking for sheet music by a little-known Christian singer-songwriter named Luke Wood. I have done some of his songs in worship services, and I wanted to do another song of his, but I couldn't find the chords anywhere. I couldn't find the exact lyrics, and it was difficult to tell exactly what they were by just listening to the song. And I thought all hope was lost because he had his old website that had all that stuff was completely gone.
Oh, interesting.
He just jettisoned it. All the content that was on there was absolutely gone. And all he had was a really minimalistic website that just had links to his social media accounts.
Oh, okay. So you just rejiggered it around and took down the other content, basically.
Yeah. So I was really, really bummed because there was a couple songs that I really, really wanted to do by him, and there was just certain parts that I could not figure out by listening to them. And it was just like, I just had a sudden flash of inspiration. It's like, I could look on the Wayback Machine. And it took some digging, let me tell you what, because this was not a very trafficked website, shall we say.
Uh-oh. Okay.
I had to dig through a lot of things because there's a surprisingly large amount of people who make content on the internet named Luke Wood.
Oh, okay.
So I had to sift through a lot of things that were not even close.
A lot of Google pages.
But I found it, and I managed to download the PDFs of the songs that I wanted.
Dang.
And so, yeah, that's the story, basically.
How long ago was this? Then you went to this adventure.
This wasn't actually all that long ago. I think this was like, I want to say about a year ago now.
Dang, okay. Wow. I was imagining like it was longer, but that's pretty neat that you were able to scrounge up stuff from there. I remember actually looking through stuff through different like going through Google, going through DuckDuckGo as well, and just different search engines to try to accumulate and find the info you're looking at, you're searching for. And you know what? Some of that actually works, but sometimes you get in that search loop or that algorithm loop where you just dive into it. And as you're going through all the pages, it just repeats the same thing over and over and over. Google is really good at this, unfortunately. So there's that as well. I think that's cool you found it. Were you like combing through different like languages and like Russia and like Brazil and Canadianese, as they say?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't quite that desperate.
Oh, okay. Because I've been there where like you're searching for something and you're like, I remember looking for lyrics of songs as well at some point, like in my time using the internet, and I found just random stuff from like Brazil, like different Spanish speaking websites that had the lyrics listed in English. And I'm like, holy cow, this is real. And this is super neat, you know? And it kind of makes you wonder what is the algorithm outing when it brings up the searches for you? Like when you're searching for that, well, let's say here's Luke Wood. Okay, well, also here's another Luke Wood. Oh, here's Luke Wood, the backcountry singer from Tennessee. You know, like here's the artist Luke Wood. You know, blah blah blah. But what is it omitting? You know, is it omitting like a Secretary of State Luke Wood from the 70s, for example? I have no idea. But like, I'm just intrigued in the fact that the algorithm has become so big and so crazy that we're kind of getting to the point where this whole AI thing coming into it all is kind of becoming a very valuable tool in sifting through it extremely fast, because us humans can never sift through it to the extent it can. However, I feel like it's really awesome that we can utilize it, because now instead of just Googling something, you can just say, hey, can you find me Luke Wood's like music sheet from this song? And is it like, you know, can you get it for me? And it will try to do that as well. Do you have any use? Have you ever had to use ChatGPT or anything like that in scenarios of the such?
Yeah, no, I've never had to use it. I've made some attempts to just see what it was all about. You know, I Googled some random stuff. I think I tried to make it give me an image of like what certain what was it? The locust described in the book of Revelation.
Oh, yeah.
Because despite having read that passage for years and years and years, my brain can just not build a solid picture of what those things could possibly look like. You know, when I try to imagine them in my mind, it's just contradictions.
Yeah.
So I was like, can AI help me do that? And well, the answer is no. It did not understand the question.
Interesting. Did you try pasting the verse in, like from the Bible directly?
Yes, I tried that. I tried distilling it down to just the basics, still using the I tried pasting the verses in. I tried removing, sort of carving out the fluff from the verse and just leaving the keywords in there. I tried completely just stripping it down to the simplest basic thing could find, which was, I think I ended up with locusts with human faces and long hair and scorpion tails. And the best I got was a rather disturbing cartoon of people with locust heads, which is, you know, the opposite.
It's nightmare fuel right there.
It's like asking AI for an image of a mermaid and getting reverse mermaid instead. You know,
a fish head and a human bottom.
Yeah.
Did you get to see the images we did when we typed in Matt's like a gamer tag?
No, I don't
Bing?
think I saw that.
Oh, when me and Steven were gonna play some games on the like LAN computers, and like I went to Bing. I'm like, oh, let me type in Steven's name, and so I typed in his name. It came up with a weird like amalgamation we had to eventually get to it where we said in Arthurian legend art style, and that worked. So anyway, we typed in Matt's username, which is MattFlexRead, and holy cow, man, it showed the Jack, just like the most muscly bound German-looking fellow I've ever seen in a field of grass and reeds, holding a bundle of reeds, and he doesn't have a 6-pack. He has an 18.5-pack. And it was very perplexing, to say the least.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we showed Matt, and he's like, "Oh God!" I was like, "Yeah, that was my reaction too." So it's interesting what AI can do in image creation, but in terms of data, like searching, I found it really useful, especially like working on my resumes and stuff, looking for different jobs. It's super handy and like, hey, here's like a basic description of what I did in this job. Can you like break it down for me in like 2 paragraphs? And it's like, yeah. And so it basically like rejiggers everything you wrote and redoes it in a certain way. And you can say, make it less flowery, make it more precise, bullet point it for me. And then, it's not gonna be perfect, but it's a good enough tool that'll really save you a lot of time and just staring at a blank piece of paper and in this situation, I wasn't staring at a blank piece of paper. I just wrote out and blah on the paper. And then it just kind of like helped me organize it. It's a really good organizing tool. I really would love to have something like that. And I know it's possible out there that people have made their own programs like this to go through and sift through all my in quotes, media that I have. I don't know why I said quotes. The media I have on my hard drives, like my movies, my YouTube videos, and like TV shows that I have. And I just wanted to like label and date everything and just do that for me, because that'd be so helpful. I know like Plex. Do you know what Plex is?
No.
So Plex is like a in-home streaming solution that you can install actually like on the Xbox. You can like install the app and then run it on your computer, and you can just stream directly over your Wi-Fi or your internet connection to the device it's on.
Interesting.
Yeah, and you open the app, it goes through all your data on your hard drive, like all the movies, and it gives them all like different names and categories, and then you can just stream them from there. The way I did it, like when I backed up everything, was really like messy, like in terms of like naming everything. I thought it was correct, but it wasn't. Like Plex didn't like the way I like titled everything, and so it was like there's 72 season S1s folders, and I'm like, no, that's not right. That's S1 inside the name of the show. Like it's like it was messy. So apparently there's a way for Plex to rename everything. So I think that'll be my next step. But that kind of also dives into like the DVDs and like Blu-rays of physical media. And I was curious to ask what your experiences are with that. But I'll start us off with, I showed you this like DVD I found called, oh, dang it, I can't remember what it's called. I showed it to, we were just talking about the Bruce Campbell one.
Yeah.
Shoot. And it's like this movie / documentary thing about Bruce Campbell playing himself and saving this town from horror creatures and stuff, kind of like, in The Walking Dead, of course, that he's in. Or not Walking Dead, oh my God. Evil Dead. Man, I'm tired. My apologies. But I think it's called My Name is Bruce.
Yeah, that is what it's called.
Yeah. And I just heard about it. It sounded hilarious. Really wanted to watch it. And I couldn't find it streaming anywhere at all. And I was able to find it on DVD on eBay, thankfully, for like $20 or whatever. But has there ever been anything that you have looked for and sought after in terms of your shows or movies or whatever, and that you couldn't find online, but you were able to find again secondhand?
Yes, actually. The big one that comes to mind is the anime series Darker Than Black.
Ooh.
I remember watching it way back in the day. It was actually on Netflix. And I remember watching it with a bunch of friends, and I really liked it. And years went by, and Funimation lost the rights to it. So it was no longer on Netflix. It was no longer on Crunchyroll. It was no longer on any of that.
Whoa. Really?
So, but I wanted to rewatch it. I wanted to relive it. I was like, man, this show was like such a moment in my lifetime where I was like, man, this is like really great in a way that most shows are not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I was like, I gotta find it somewhere. And lo and behold, I found a DVD set of the first season, and on Amazon of all places.
Oh, nice.
And so, yeah, I mean, I grossly overpaid for it.
Yeah.
Grossly overpaid for it, but it was worth it because now I have that show.
Yeah, there's quite a few things you actually can't find nowadays on like Netflix and stuff like that. And it's getting to the point where it's like it's always been annoying to me, but it's getting to the point where it's getting ridiculous, especially with all the consolidation we've had in like the Hollywood industry. Like, why can't I go find, like, Seinfeld's a great example. Like, Seinfeld is pretty much widely available, especially even in DVD format. But like, for example, Netflix, I think, has had the rights for the last many, many years, that and Friends. And they've signed another deal for another like 2 or 3 years that was worth, oh God, it was worth like 250 million, 500 million, some crazy amount of number, what they had to pay for that and Friends. So like, it was ridiculous, but it's on there. So that's kind of cool. So all you need is Netflix to get it. However, once that dries up and that deal goes away, are they going to like try to find a better deal with like, say, Peacock, for example, or Paramount or something like that? Like, you're just going to have to go back and forth, I feel like, throughout these years until basically it's like cable again and you got to just get the different packages. And I feel like that's honestly where we're headed. There's a really funny movie I'm soughting after right now called Harrison Burger Run. It was a film in 95 with Sean Astin, and it had Christopher Plummer in it, and I never heard anything about it. Apparently it's about like in the 2050s about, I mean, I'm reading it right here, like American government forces all citizens to wear headsets that decrease their brain function, and Sean Astin's like the main character, and you cannot find it anywhere right now to stream or to access or rent. I tried to find it on eBay, but the one listing I found was like $30, and then somebody bought it like 3 weeks later.
Oh,
It was terrible. I was like, oh man. So it's just, it's called Harrison Burgeron or Burgerin. It's based off a book, and Kurt Vonnegut. It's a short story written by Kurt Vonnegut. Kurt Vonnegut. All right, fine, we'll go with that. But anyway, it's stuff like that you can't really access anymore, and stuff that's kind of just lost forever. I mean, and it's just sad because like your Darker and Black, I mean, you can only get it now on DVD. I remember you mentioning that, wasn't there like a season 2 or something? Or
yeah, there is a season 2, but it's essentially a completely different show.
Oh, okay.
It's really, it doesn't have any of the vibe or the charm of season 1. I mean, it has some of the same characters, but just the tone of the show is totally different.
Yeah. It
doesn't capture any of the magic of season 1.
I wonder if like, oh man, you ever heard of the show? Actually, I knew it. I just forgot what I was going to say, so never mind. We're going to go forward. But again, like, yeah, Netflix and all these streamers are just becoming like so inherently more difficult as we go on throughout the years, like to access media that we want to access, that, DVDs and Blu-rays are or physical media in general is kind of the way to go, unfortunately. Like, and there's ways to, like I've mentioned right here, to back it up to your hard drives, and there's ways to do that, but it is a chore and a lot of time and work to invest in. However, I mean, a lot of people just resort to piracy and like torrents and stuff like that, which, is kind of becoming more attractive to me personally as we're going through the years, because Netflix is really cracking down on like password sharing. Like me and my sister, we pay Netflix. I help pay throughout the year, and now I can't access it because it's saying, "Oh, what's your household?" or "Is this the primary household?" You have to. It's starting to become difficult to access the content that you want to access. Especially, there's some really cool stuff on Netflix. Like, I kind of like using it. Like, Pluto is a more recent anime I've been watching. Really neat and awesome, and just a bunch of really awesome things. I mean, everybody understands that, but I look at my media library and on my shelves, David, and I see all these Blu-rays, and I'm like, man, is there going to be a point where like this is all I got? Is this going to be where, I'm just going to only have this eventually? Like, what if an EMP goes off, David? No more Netflix. What are we going to do? I mean, We'll definitely watch your Mel Brooks collection because I envy that. That's a really cool collection you got. Are there any others you really like are sodding after in terms of collecting physically? Because I know you have a couple as well. The stuff you really like.
Yes. So I'm not so much into movies and TV shows as far as collecting physical versions of those, but I do have a few that I really, really like that I have physical versions of. Mostly I'm into keeping physical versions of music that I like. But there is, though, my next acquisition, though, for as far as physical media goes, is definitely going to have to be another anime that I watched years and years ago. It's called Monster.
Oh, yeah, I remember you telling me about this.
Yeah, it's such a great show. I am not exaggerating when I say it is probably one of my favorite animes I've ever watched.
Really?
Like, of all time.
What's so captivating about Monster?
It's just the story and the characters and the sense of mystery and foreboding and what's going to happen next. It just draws you in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of big budget mainstream shows that could learn a few lessons from Monster.
You know what? It's really interesting. I just looked it up on justwatch.com, which I recommend to you and anybody listening. It's a great website that categorizes and lets you just type in what show you want to look for and shows you what kind of streaming services or where you can buy it and where you can purchase it and that kind of thing. I typed in Monster. It's from 2004. Is that right? It's the 2004 Monster.
That sounds right, yes.
Okay. It's not available anywhere to stream. And I'm sure if I go to eBay and type it in, I'm sure it's going to be a great amount of money as well to purchase.
Yeah, that's another one that was on Netflix when I originally watched it, and then Funimation lost the rights to it.
I think that's so sad too, because there's so many things that, especially nowadays, what was that was it? I can't remember if it was HBO or Disney, where they made a show based on Grease, the musical, and it was called it was like a female empowerment show where it's all these gals from, I think it's a prequel or a sequel to Grease.
Weird.
And it's supposed to be a musical, and it seemed like an interesting concept, but nobody really cared about it. And as a result, it actually got taken offline, and you can no longer access it anywhere because it was an HBO Max exclusive. And so there's stuff like that. The new Willow reboot that they did last year, David. It came out last year, this Willow reboot with our wonderful, awesome actor. What's his name? The guy who played Wicked.
Yeah.
Willow. You remember his name? I don't remember his name.
Oof.
This is a big oof for me. So anyway, Warwick Davis, thank you. With the wonderful Warwick Davis, this show was a reboot of the movie or a sequel to it. And I heard it was really bad. It was not good at all. And because there was no other way to watch it, and because Disney wanted to write stuff off and to not pay for more rights, which is something they own. I don't understand that process, but apparently they didn't want to pay for it anymore. And so they took it off their servers, and now you can't even access it anymore.
Yep.
It's so painful to me.
That is one of the side effects of living in a streaming world as we do nowadays. Shows don't get physical releases by default anymore. So if you've got a niche interest, you better hope they don't take it off their servers.
Yeah.
Because you won't be able to get it otherwise. Unless, of course, you wish to sail the high seas, which is really funny to me that more and more people are going to start to turn to that simply because of the way these companies are running their streaming services now. It's people who are perfectly willing to pay for content and have no desire to steal content are probably going to be driven to piracy simply by the actions of the companies they want to purchase the shows from.
Yeah. For example, since the whole Netflix thing happened, more recently to me, I was like, well, shoot, how do I track down this one show I really like, which was The Last Dance on Netflix. It's a wonderful documentary, 10 parts, or is it 8? I think it's 10 parts, and it's about Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls in that last couple seasons of basketball they played, and a whole bunch of history before that they go and tell. It's really well done. I'm a huge fan of documentaries, and I gotta say, I don't even care like a smidge about basketball, like at all. But this documentary made me so invested, and just it's so entertaining and so well edited, and it's fun to watch. That, no joke, David, it's probably like 8 to 9 hours long. I've watched it probably 10 times. Like I love this show so much. And you can probably go to like ESPN Plus, and which is part of Disney, and you can watch it there as well. However, I was like, man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch this anymore. So I looked online for like 3 hours trying to track down a copy. And because it was a Best Buy exclusive physically and here in the US, and Best Buy's getting rid of all their physical media right now, I couldn't get a copy locally. So I'm like, dang it. So I look on their website, can't get it. I go to eBay, $120 for a copy, which was like a $70 Blu-ray purchase, which is now $120. I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. And so I go onto this random website. I think it was called postmark.com. It's basically like a website. I don't know how to describe it. It's like a boutique personalized website for selling dresses and selling like clothes. It's definitely not advertised to me, but one seller on there had a copy of The Last Dance.
That's amazing.
And I was like really tempted to buy it. And then I went on Marketplace on Facebook and found a copy. And unfortunately, I've had no success in obtaining one, because the guy wants it was $20, but now he wants like $30 in shipping fees. And I'm like, dude, what the heck? So I might have to go to that Postmark website and get that Blu-ray. But it really is just not, I know it sounds like, oh, this is a lot of first world problems. There's other things to worry about in the world. But like, this is art. This is like stuff that is going to be around for a long time, past people who created it. I kind of want to save it and show my kids it eventually as well. Mm-hmm. Like, there's plenty of examples that people have for that. Like, they want to show their children and they want to keep it for themselves and just enjoy it. It's art. It's part of the human experience and blah, blah, blah. But it sucks that I can't find it, and I have to basically almost nearly resort to piracy to get it. And so that's kind of what I had to do with Last Dance. I downloaded it. I'm still planning on buying the Blu-ray, but it's unfortunate that I have to either go out and pay $20 a month for Netflix or even more now, or download it via a torrent or something. Like, it's just, I think it's sad, but I'm not really a big fan of piracy. Like, I don't pirate any games unless I can't find them anymore. Speaking of video games, though, I think where we can go next, because Nintendo, David, has been really interesting to watch, because with them closing down, with the success of the Switch and them closing down their old hardware and the online services for that hardware, like the Wii U and the 3DS, there are a lot of games that they have basically closed off access to that people can't really find anymore. They're not on Switch. They were only on 3DS or Wii U, and you can only play them there. And thankfully, nowadays, it's pretty easily enough to emulate a lot of games like that. But it is unfortunate that Nintendo, people who, use your childhood to make so much money off of you every day of the year, is just kind of letting go of a lot of different things in their own history and not investing in the future with those things. So, I don't know. What do you think of all this, David, especially as we go into this all digital future where we will own nothing and be happy?
Well, I say bring it on, I trust Klaus Schwab. I trust the World Economic Forum.
I trust the WEO. I trust them,
They seem like nice people,
He sounds so nice when he's talking too, that thick German accent, and he's like, "Yar," and it's like, whoa, all right, yeah, I can trust this man. That sounds good to me.
Especially with some of their articles they've put out, just detailing the happy future that awaits us all. It's like, how can you not be excited for that?
How can you not be excited about, staying in your own pod and being, what's that movie that George Lucas made, THX, 13 something. What was that movie? You know what I'm talking about, right? THX. It was the one he made before Star Wars. You know what I'm talking about?
Maybe.
What? You never? Oh my God. That's where the THX logo and stuff comes from. It's from that movie he made.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's basically like a guy who's in a dystopian future who lives in a pod.
Okay,
and he has to run away from people.
Okay, I think I think I've heard of that. It's just I've certainly never watched it, but I think I've heard of it. I think I've heard of it.
It's like THX 1337. I don't know, but
yeah.
if you're interested in the future that might happen, there's plenty of it out there. But again, it's back to it. Like, it's really sad that these companies are like, and it's mostly just all big corporate conglomerates that are doing this, that are kind of just taking away the choice or the ease of access that we've had for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why people resort to piracy. I look at Steam, for example, Valve, PC gaming. I look at them. They are a prime example of making it so easy to access and purchase your own media that it's almost a chore to go to piracy. But now the window of that has shifted in the movie and film industry, where it's far more, and it arguably has been more easy, but I would argue like $15 a month for Netflix, you pay it, boom, there you go. You can go on your tablet, your phone, your TV, your media device, your computer, whatever, and you can just watch it all. But now it's become so much of a pain to go through it all that it's just it's conflicting, because you love what people want to make and you want to support that and you want to watch it because that's cool, but it's just becoming so difficult, and they're doing it on purpose.
Especially in this day and age where you have to pay extra for fully HD content.
Yeah, or no commercials.
But if you want to watch that on your computer instead of on a smart TV or a tablet or whatever, you're kind of out of luck. And they don't even tell you that you're out of luck.
Yeah.
You just you pay for the HD, and you load up a show on your computer, and it's not fully HD. It's like 720p or something.
It's actually even lower than that, David. I was trying to watch Bullet Train on Netflix on my browser one time, and it was so pixely and horrible. And I'm like, dude, why is this so bad? I don't want to go out in the living room and watch this. I just want to watch this while I do something else. And it's like, I looked, there's a shortcut on the keyboard, David, on the browser you can use to view like what your bit rate is and everything on Netflix. It's super nice. And I did that, and it said it was like 540p.
What?
I know. And I'm on the premium account that has access to 4K and HDR and all that fancy stuff that I don't really need, but it'd be nice. But I'm watching it, I'm like, it's not even 1080p. What is this? Like, I can plug in my Blu-ray right now, and it's 1440p clean image.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to get the 4K and do that, you can do that as well. And it's just, they're making it harder and harder. And I know why they're doing it is because, copyright protection, so you can't record it or whatever. But it's what if somebody doesn't know how to do that and they just want to watch it, Yeah. Like, it's so dumb. Like, you have to go to your Xbox. You have to go to your PlayStation. You have to go to your TV and watch it through there in these closed off environments,
And somebody who's dedicated enough will find a way to copy it.
Oh, yeah.
They will find a way to pirate it.
Yeah.
But so you're not really preventing that.
Mm-hmm.
You're just inconveniencing the customers who actually want to pay you money for your products.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. Like, I remember when, I think it was in the early 2000s, where people were saying, oh, yeah, the future is mobile, and the future is people don't want to pay for all this. They don't want to, they're just going to pirate everything on the PC, like when PC gaming was starting to become bigger and bigger. They're like, they're just going to pirate everything. And then Steam comes along, and it wasn't pretty at first, but as years proceeded and they worked on their platform, as the years went by, it got so easy, and it's stupid easy now to do it. Like, especially for, like I've mentioned before, the LAN party. Like I have all those computers over there, David. Do you think I pirated games on there? I did not. I had to go through and on sale, thankfully, I went and purchased like Master Chief Collection for like 7 different computers. Like because it's super easy to do it and I would like to pay for it and I'd like to have seamless experience when we game. And it's awesome that I can do that. But if I want to go watch Bullet Train on my Firefox browser, I can't do that or Google Chrome or whatever. It's so maddening.
Yeah.
And the lesser quality thing is also a great example because even streaming music is kind of the same thing. For me, I can't really notice it. Like I'm not a big audiophile. And I'm not a big audiophile, but people, have said like when you listen to Spotify, the streaming quality is actually pretty bad at times, depending on, your signal and whatnot. But even downloading your music, there's actually a pretty notable difference compared to, say, other forms of listening to it. Do you have any more details? You're more musically inclined than I am. So do you know anything about that or Spotify and how they handle things versus like YouTube or something like that or Apple?
I don't actually have any real knowledge on how they handle it. I'm kind of backwards when it comes to music. I either listen to music on YouTube or I listen to it on vinyl or CD.
All right.
So I don't really mess with Spotify. I don't mess with Apple Music. I don't do none of that, not because I'm like technologically backwards or anything. It's just I have no desire to really branch out into new streaming services. I can stream music on YouTube and I can listen to my physical media that I have, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah. And I think that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I mean, I think you have the same thing. I think we both have YouTube Premium. Is that right?
Yeah.
And that offers YouTube Music, I guess, as their streamer competitive, but it's not like... Have you used YouTube Music or do you use that often? Or
I have used YouTube Music simply because YouTube proper has some issues with the Bluetooth in my car.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
So if I want to listen to music in the car, I'll load up YouTube Music specifically for that. But most of the time, I don't make use of it. Most of the time, I'm just listening to my music directly from YouTube, whether it's from the website on the computer or from the app on my phone.
Yeah, I think I think that's really cool that YouTube is just, because I've noticed actually just by my not very informative ears of audio quality, I'll go to Spotify and I have Spotify Premium. I'll listen to it in the car. I'll listen to it on my headphones, and I'm listening to it on my headphones, and then I go to YouTube and I'm like, oh, what's that one remix? I was looking for that one song. Like I'd love to find that one remix of Into Club, for example. I'm going on YouTube, I'm looking for it. I go to the original version and it sounds way better. Like the audio only version on YouTube sounds way better than on Spotify. And I honestly don't know why, but it just sounds better to me. Maybe because it's louder? I don't really know. Like, it's strange.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's because it's louder. As far as I know, the normalization that Spotify and YouTube do, they both normalize audio to about the same level. So yeah, it's really just a question of what kind of under the hood, behind the scenes stuff are they doing as far as the audio is concerned, and as far as what that is exactly, I don't have any answers because I just don't bother with Spotify in general.
And probably better for it, I'll say. I mean, it's nice to have Spotify, but like Spotify is yet another example where like you're looking for something that was on Spotify, you'll find it again, it's grayed out because the license holder took it off of Spotify because they didn't get paid or something like that.
Yeah.
Same thing with a lot of Snoop Dogg's music. I think a lot of his early albums aren't on Spotify, for example, right now because he wants to get paid for that. Mm-hmm. And they're not willing to pay what he wants for that, which is fine and fair. I mean, if you made that stuff and you want to get paid for it, that's cool, like in the right way. But I think it's unfortunate that most of the time when you can't access something, it's because it's switched right holders or the copyright is expired or something like that. I mean, everybody says Neil Young is a great example. Like, oh, look at Neil Young. His stuff's not on Spotify. It's only on Apple Music. Well, that's because he signed that company that owns it signed a deal with Apple Music.
Yep.
And same thing with Taylor Swift and all that. I mean, you can find most of her stuff on a lot of these platforms, but she did at a time have it on Apple Music exclusively when they launched their, I think they launched their streaming service years ago. So it's just, I don't know. It's becoming frustrating. I feel like the solution to all this is to kind of just go through and collect your physical media that you really like. I mean, I know for me, like I kind of wanted to get into like, I'm going to get this DS game and this Game Boy Advance game and I'm going to get this old Xbox game because I really need it for some reason, you know? Well, it's like I'm purchasing things I don't need necessarily. So I've kind of come to the point where I'm like, I kind of just want to get what I want. Like, I don't want to be like those people that like, I'm going to get every single N64 game in the box on my shelf. Am I ever going to play it? I don't think so, but I'm going to have it there. And it's like, I don't want to be that. I just want to get like what I want for my consoles. Like there's a lot of stuff on 360 and PS3 right now that I would love to get. I just can't do it right financially at the moment, but eventually I'd like to give that and play that in time because I think there's a lot of cool stuff that's actually lost on there that are only on those platforms. Like Xbox One was awesome when they brought in their, what was it called? Their backwards compatible program. They went through and individually made a lot of games playable on the Xbox One. Now, if you have your disc, you stick it in, and it kind of sucks because it's not the actual disc. You stick it in, that's your license, basically. You stick it in, and it downloads the copy from the store.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool because they even did this for games you can't even buy anymore, like Death Knight Fight in New York City, like the rapper fighter game. Like, you can't buy that officially anymore because it has a ton of, like, copyrighted music in it because it's, you know, it's a rap game or whatever. But to get Def Jam, if you have a copy of Def Jam, you can still get a hold of that copy, plug it in the Xbox, and it will download because they made it work and they ported that to the Xbox One. Excuse me. And I feel like going into, you and me were kind of talking about this the other day when Xbox is in an interesting point where they're looking like they're going to continue that program because they had to stop it for a while, just for whatever reason. They said, we're going to stop that program. We've invested enough money into it. Most of the popular stuff you can play. But I feel like as we're going through the years, I feel like they're going to go back and they're going to keep sifting through it, which I feel is really interesting compared to the competition. Sony's also doing the same thing. They are going through their back catalog and porting PS1 classics and PS2 classics and finally PSP classics to their online streaming service that you can get or their online subscription service. But it's weird comparing that to like a very unregulated market like video games compared to a very regulated market, which is movies and DRM and DMCA and all that stuff. And it's interesting to see the comparison we can make there because one is like really trying to keep itself alive by bringing back the past because you could make a lot of money on it. And the other one is too, like Hollywood is, but they're doing it in a way where they want to make it as hard as possible for you to access while at the same time trying to profit off your nostalgia.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate to say the least. I have an interesting inquiry for you, David. Throughout the years, I've actually, it's really funny. So like we all grew up around VHSs and we all made copies of movies and, you know, transferred movies, recorded them, etc. Right? Well, actually, I remember growing up, my parents actually did the same thing with DVDs. So they had I had a DVD recorder growing up and we would record like, you know, I remember watching my nieces and nephews. So we would record stuff on Disney Channel and stuff like that. And we would have it on DVD, like a physical copy. I can go back into my room right now, David, and I have a full folder of Modern Marvels on the History Channel because I loved that show. And I actually am kind of glad I still have those and I transfer them on like our satellite TV at the time because like Modern Marvels on the History Channel, which is just like an informative documentary style show or whatever. It's different topics. Doesn't matter. I really love that show. I can't find anything like at all to purchase any of those episodes or anything like that. Like there's like some crazy like 27 seasons of that show, and they're just kind of lost to time except for a few like volumes out there, or if you have like a History Channel subscription or something.
Yeah.
But I've then transferred that like love of backing up media that my parents had over to like me. Like I have all my DVDs and Blu-rays that I have backed up to my hard drive. I found out a way to rip them and keep them in an MP4 and on a thumb drive or a hard drive and back them up. And it's awesome because I also love to mess around with Premiere Pro and video edit. And that's one way to get high quality like stuff from that. But it's kind of funny that I also do it for YouTube as well. Like I have a whole hard drive of just YouTube stuff from different channels organized in like different folders, like Black Nerd Comedy, Nostalgia Critic, a bunch of tech, PC tech channels. It's just kind of, it's very silly and niche, but it's kind of like where I'm getting to at this point is it's kind of like my own, and it's my own like library I can access. And I feel like, and I encourage everybody to kind of, it takes some time to learn, especially if you're trying to do it for TV and movies. However, if you really want to get into it and access it or try to find someone else's library, I highly recommend it, especially in the uncertainty that we're heading toward as we go through the 2020s. And if you guys need any, if you guys need a folder, you also need to get a folder that says videos that end cancer, because I also have one of those and it's amazing. And you just go through it and you laugh your butt off and it's awesome. And I made that folder right before TikTok came out. So yeah, there you go. And I just find it really awesome that you can have access to that stuff, because there's also some YouTube videos that I download from different channels that ain't around anymore. There's a Minecraft series that I loved watching that I think the creator took off most of the episodes because he was kind of embarrassed that he released those episodes back in the day because he's older now. And so he's kind of having regret doing it. And so he's like kind of privating all the videos, or he's just unlisting them or taking them down. So it's kind of hard to access that content. And I also fear for like people who are super into TikTok and Instagram and YouTube Shorts, because a lot of those videos, you can't really like bookmark or save them, especially in YouTube, because you can just like it and then there's no way to go back and get it. And so my obsessive mind is like, I'm going to screen record this one video so I can have it. But at some point also, it's kind of silly to save everything. You shouldn't save everything. You should only save what
definitely
you like.
not.
Like, I really respect you and like the things you buy in terms of your physical media. Like I see Howl's Moving Castle, and yeah, I think you have Grave of the Fireflies or something like that. Like to have the stuff you really, really like and to keep it there because it's yours and it's your ownership. And I think that's where I'm getting to. It's like the ownership of things is becoming like, it's becoming fishy. Like you can't really, the access is one thing, but the ownership's another thing.
Yeah.
Especially things that are offline. Like I was watching a video where people are like switching from smartphones to dumb phones just to see what it's like. And they come back in this video that they have on it and they're like, wow, once I stopped using like my smartphone and only used my phone for like texting and calling or messaging people on like a messenger app, once I just focusing on it being a messaging device instead of like a media consumption device, my life like immediately got better because I'm not into social media and a lot of stuff like that. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting, like to get a dumb phone. I also find out, because I watched that video, YouTube then recommends other stuff like, oh, hey, here's somebody that used an MP3 player for 90 days or bought an old iPod and refurbished it. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. What kind of stuff's going on here? So it's kind of like there's a whole community out there right now that's kind of like being intentional about the kind of media they consume and kind of like having it so that they can invest in it. I think of Bandcamp as an example. That's a wonderful platform. You can just find really niche indie artists and people you come across randomly, and you can just buy their album, download the MP3 or FLAC or whatever format you want, and just have it forever.
Yeah.
Super nice.
That's that Bandcamp's a great example of an online service that gives you something you can take ownership of, because you can download the actual files of the songs in like FLAC or something, some sort of lossless, uncompressed format that is meant for long-term, high-fidelity storage and high fidelity reproduction.
Yeah, and I'm not really into like buying an MP3 player or anything and accessing stuff like that, but I have seen people do that, and I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. Like refurbishing old iPod. Oh shoot, I remember what they're called, but the iPod with the screen and the circle like buttons you can like scroll through the songs and stuff. Some of those had actual hard drives in it. People are like tearing them apart and refurbishing them, and there's a whole community dedicated to that online you can find by refurbishing these older iPods. And then they also mod them with different firmware. So you can like load up different like music, and you don't have to use iTunes exclusively. You can just plug it in and drag and drop stuff, kind of like an MP3 player. And even my friends and some cousins of mine are like buying these like cheap $70 MP3s on MP3 players on Amazon. And they're just, it comes with like two SD card slots. It comes with iOS like Android 4.0 or 5.0 or 6.0. And you're just loading up stuff on it. And you can use Spotify on it. It's Wi-Fi capable. And it's just a wonderful, beautiful offline device. You can just use and not be tracked or anything like that. And you can even turn off the Wi-Fi or uninstall Spotify if you don't want to be tracked. And
yeah.
Privacy is a whole nother topic, but I feel like it's cool to have that aspect available to you as well.
Yeah. Speaking of things that once were but now are not, I'm reminded of
Chicago Bulls.
I'm reminded of a website I used to use quite frequently called Stumble Upon.
Oh,
you ever heard of that?
No.
So it was like basically like allowed you to just traverse the wild and weird and wacky things the internet had to offer. Like its basic functionality was that it took you to a random web page.
Oh my gosh.
Like you
awesome.
just hit a button and you're transported to a random web page. But it had you were able to filter by category. You were able to save certain things. It would also you could also have it track your likes and gear what it showed you towards what you've liked. So you could, over time, you hitting the random wouldn't be completely random. It would be more like random yet curated content. It was very interesting. And I use it a lot just mostly because some of the pages that it took you to were just and just a page where an image file was stored, and there were some stunning photographs that I found just basically finding images off these random websites.
Wow. Is this like people would post stuff on this website or?
No. It was you. It was all about you traversing the internet, basically. Okay. You hit a button, you're taken to a random web page. And sometimes the websites were like niche things. Like it had this weird, like, there's one website I found that was like this like weird, like old school radio sort of contraption that was basically like an interactive Flash cartoon.
It's called Stumble Upon?
Stumble Upon.
Interesting. I'll look that up.
Yeah. And I remember I stopped using it for a number of years, and then I remember I tried to go back to it because I needed a picture for something, and I was like, I wasn't finding things on Google Images that I wanted, so I was like, oh, I have tons of pictures saved on Stumble Upon. I haven't used it in years. Let's see if I can log into it, and well, it is now no more.
Oh, really? Oh, well, I went to stumbleupon.com just now, and it said like, oh, log in or whatever, use the QR code. And so I exit out of that, and then I'm taken to like this website where it's just a blank page with like the logo on top.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the right one, but it's like very bizarre, and there's nothing to do here really except for log in.
Yeah.
You have to like make an account, I'm guessing, or
I think
there's an invite code. Oh.
I think if I remember correctly, there's some service which sort of like Stumble Upon is owned by some service, and I can't remember exactly what, and you can't use Stumble Upon as such, like you basically using this service as a sort of analog to what Stumble Upon did.
Huh.
But it's been a while since I've ever messed with it, but I tried to log in and make it work, and I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to come back to that and see what that's all about, because that sounds pretty cool. Like, it sounds like it was awesome. Like stumbling upon random. It's like having a list of websites and just things that people have online and just hit shuffle. Like, that sounds dope.
Yep.
And I think that, that kind of brings us to like intentionality and our media consumption, because I mean, when I'm trying to relax, I feel like YouTube shorts or like Instagram shorts are like so easy to get into, or Instagram reels, I should say, are so easy to get into that it's like, it's almost a problem. Like, I remember when TikTok came out a few years ago, and I installed it, I'm using it, and it was an issue. Like, I was scrolling, and next thing I know, it's like 1 a.m, David. Or, dude, there was one time, and this is right after this, I deleted TikTok altogether because I was scrolling, and then my battery ran out on my phone.
Oh, dang.
And I'm like, dude, this is a problem. I need to get off of this. It was an issue. And so I kind of just used Instagram Reels, which, let me just say, I don't use Facebook Shorts or Reels or whatever. Don't use YouTube. YouTube Shorts is fine. But Instagram Reels has become such a wonderful algorithm to like the things I like to watch, where it's like, I was just thinking about something and boom, it pops up. And I'm like, oh, this is exactly what I want. With YouTube, it's different. YouTube kind of treats it like, let me go through who you are subscribed first, and we'll go through that. We'll mix in like a video of this, a video of that. I realize Spotify also is another example of that, where you hit shuffle and it'll do something from your liked folder. It'll do something from an album you never heard of. When you go through like their algorithm infused shuffle thingy, it'll do that, where it'll pick a really hit song. And then it's, you can start seeing these patterns in these like different, what's it called? These different shuffling of media and consuming it through these apps, where the algorithm is kind of just, you're seeing the patterns of the algorithm, I've noticed. And it's kind of like, oh, okay, so I'm going to skip to this song on Spotify. Okay, it's probably going to play something that I really like, listen to a lot. Okay, I did it. Okay, it's probably going to go to another song, probably toward the bottom of the list, but something I haven't listened to. And boom, it does. Just that kind of example. And Reels has done a really good job of that, but also searching and like dragging through the internet and scraping and seeing what is out there and what like to my liking. And it's mostly just funny videos and memes and stuff like that. And Instagram, I think, is the best place to find memes and stuff like that. Like, I think it's better than TikTok, because TikTok will throw whatever's on the top at you as well, which is fine. And Reels does as well. However, Reels does it a more authentic, I guess, way. And more of a way that's just like, hey, here's what you like, instead of like, here's pushing this message or this platform or the speaker or whatever. And I think that it doesn't respect your time at all. None of these things do. But they respect, Reels does a great job of respecting your interests. And that's what I really like about it. Have you use YouTube Shorts? I mean, you probably have used some of those. Or what's your experience with TikTok, David? Are you a famous TikToker I'm secretly unaware of?
Yes, actually.
Whoa, is it you making the album? Is it you making the album Ain't No Twigs with My Woman Jezebel? Exactly. Yeah, I knew it. Woo!
My entire behind the scenes documentary on the production of that album is found exclusively on TikTok.
Oh my God. I need to watch this documentary. How long is this documentary, David? Is it over 8 hours?
It's precisely 38 seconds.
Oh, man, I like long form content. I want to do that. Oh man, but have you used TikTok at all besides making your behind the scenes?
No, I have not. I stay away from TikTok. Not because it is a Chinese spyware company.
Oh, yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but I'm not going to be on my high horse about that because every social media company is trying to spy on you so it can steal your information and sell it. Yeah. But so I'm not like all high and mighty like I don't use TikTok because it's un-American. Nothing like that.
I want my media stolen from them guys in Silicon Valley, not in Shenzhen ding along dong.
Yeah, it's more like the content.
I want my American data stolen by Americans.
Exactly. You think I want to take the job of stealing my data away from hardworking Americans and give it to some dank Chinese folks?
Oh, wow.
No,
we just got demonetized.
Yeah. But yeah, I just don't use TikTok because the content for the most part doesn't interest me at all. Like I've been in places where like, somebody like screencasted a TikTok reel to their TV I'm just like, hanging out with people and just seeing some of the stuff on there. And some of it is like funny in a really morbid way, but it's like, it's not a place I want to actually invest my time.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't think it's really like a good idea to invest a lot of your time in any of these places.
No, of course not. No.
Like to intentionally go out and say, like nobody intentionally goes out and says, I'm going to spend 3 hours on reels. Nobody does that. They'll just say, let me just see what this is. And then you just keep going.
Yep.
So stealing American data for Americans only.
Yeah.
Just wait until that guy finds out what FISA is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think moving forward, though, the thing to do is intentionality.
Yes.
We as people need to be taking control of our time, taking control of where we focus our attention, because a lot of people's things like depression, things like anxiety, things like what is it called? FOMO.
Yep, FOMO.
A lot of that is almost like a social contagion that's spread through social media, and we weren't meant to live like that. We weren't meant to consume content like that. So it's very important, I think, for us as people moving forward to become more intentional about how we use our time and what we spend it doing, because I think our very society depends on it.
And I think with the whole TikTok and Instagram Reels thing, I feel like that intentionality, like, oh, hey, this show's coming on at 5:00. All right, now we know what we're doing at 5:00. Let's go ahead and sit down, eat dinner, and we'll watch it. Like that kind of is gone right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, especially with stuff like Reels and Shorts and stuff like that, which I feel like have become such an inherently unhealthy thing, like you said, a contagion among the internet and among society, that they're made specifically, like the algorithm and the way that those programs are made for you to view it are made to be addicting, are made to be so you suckle your time into it. And that's why it's so important with intentionality and being careful of what you consume in media, because I mean, we can get into the spiritual side of things, but I feel like the intentionality of it all really helps help you build discipline, help you build resilience to the FOMO and to the zeitgeist of things. And that's why I'm always an advocate of, when you see like I watch a lot of YouTube. When I see like, the clickbait or whatever, or like people all hammering on this one video game that came out that's really bad, it's like, I'm going to think critically about that. I'm not just going to go by what they say. Or, oh my God, they're going to ruin X-Men. That's going to come along soon.
Yeah.
It's like, no, come on. Like, first off, like that, on a side note for that, it's like, you don't know the intentions of the creators. You see it come out in the media at times, but also I've seen so many people who have media illiteracy that have no idea what they're talking about. And people I genuinely really like as a person just have no idea what they're talking about in terms of media and media consumption or the intentionality of people making the media.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really unfortunate to see that. It's like, oh, you know what? I'm not going to watch the new, it's more recent, but the new X-Men 97 animated show that's coming to Disney Plus because Morph is now pansexual or something. It's very silly. It's very dumb. However, it's like, that's the reason you're not going to watch this like show that looks really cool and has really cool animation. Like you're not going to go out and consume. You're not going to go, like, if you don't find it interesting, that's fine. But if you're going to say, well, you know what? I was going to go watch the new Marvel movie out in theaters, like The Marvels, but I don't want to do it because, you know what? I don't like all the woke stuff they throw in there. And it's like, did you actually watch the movie? Did you actually go out and actually give it a fair shake? You know?
Well, to be fair, I don't think
Marvel's a good example.
I don't think really anybody is going like, well, I was going to go out and watch the Marvels. I think that one is pretty much dead.
Yeah, that was a bad example. My apologies. Well, if it's like, okay, great example, David, The Last of Us. The TV show that came out, the video game it's based off upon.
Yes.
I think that there's a time and place for certain things and judging things and consuming different things. But I feel like if you are interested in something and you want to like genuinely watch it, but then you see all these things of people saying, you shouldn't watch it. It's woke. It's all these terrible things. Instead of like seeing it for what else there is to enjoy about it. Because I'm not going to enjoy Last of Us because it's woke or whatever. Like I played through Last of Us 2 like twice already. Like I know that I vehemently disagree with like what the creators believe in and what like message they want to send out there. But at the same time, I can at the same time acknowledge like, even though I disagree with them, God, that game's beautiful. God, the combat's great. Holy crap, the storytelling, the dialogue is at times really amazing. And even though there's some things I don't like about it, there's still, it's called media literacy, guys. It's looking at something and judging it and judging by it, thinking of it critically. And that's basically where I'm getting in that. Like, and going back to the whole TikTok and Reels thing, I feel like you have to be intentional. Like, you know what? I think I am going to sit down and watch a show instead of spending all my time on TikTok or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like, we have Dune right here on 4K Blu-ray.
Yep.
I feel like that sounds like a really fun time to spend my time instead of just scrolling through my phone for 3 hours, And I think that overall for society, there's like you said, the contagion is there, and it's very easy to be in a doldrum and to do what's easy and what's easy to do. But also to be intentional about your media is kind of like how people be intentional about like their diet or their body. I would treat it in the same aspect. And to really be like, oh, you know what? I don't want to go to the gym, but I'm going to do it anyway. Or I don't want to go walk the dog, but I know it's going to be good for the dog, so I'm going to go walk the dog. And I know those are different things and they don't necessarily translate point to point. However, the intentionality of things and being precise in what you want to do, but also like what you know to be better for you than TikTok.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the battle each of us face. Like, it's so easy to get sucked into the cycle. You work, you eat, you sleep, you spend the rest of your time doom scrolling,
Yeah, doom scrolling, yeah.
It's so easy to fall into that trap, and it doesn't seem like it at first, but over time, it saps the life out of your soul.
It really does, yeah.
So
I think that what I was trying to like not conflate, but trying to translate from like media literacy and intentionality is that to just enjoy what you want to enjoy. And don't be so, you and me have talked about this over and over. Like, if you want to go watch Oppenheimer, that doesn't mean in the theaters back in 2023, that doesn't mean you had to go watch Barbie. If you just wanted to go watch Oppenheimer, just go watch Oppenheimer. You like Christopher Nolan, go watch it. Doesn't mean you have to be part of the zeitgeist or the, part of all the pink that's around you,
Yeah.
So I just would say, like, there's also as well, like, especially in like America and other first world countries, the thing about a glut of choice, like Netflix, for example. You're always just scrolling through Netflix because you're like, I don't know what to watch. But when you actually have the Blu-ray in front of you, or the CD in front of you, or the vinyl in front of you, or that playlist that is on your phone, you're like, you know what? I'm going to just listen to this while I clean or cook or whatever, and being intentional with that. And I feel like people who do go through and get the dumb phone or get an MP3 player are being more intentional with their media and actually having better mental healthiness as a result.
Yeah.
Instead of going with the whim of things,
Yep. Which also reminds me of children and mobile devices.
Ooh.
I see this so often. It's almost like children are being raised by their phones and tablets these days.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy. It's so stressful and hard to be a parent, especially nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
So the attractive option just to hand them a tablet and say, here, distract yourself for an hour while I, have some peace so I can have some peace and quiet it's such an inviting offer.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, I feel like that's what's plunging us further and further and further into this cycle, where we're just mindless consumers of media.
I think that, that also reminds me, David, I think you touched on a really awesome point there, because that ties right back into intentionality. Because if you can't discipline yourself and, for example, if I go and I love listening to podcasts, I'm going to go and listen to a 5-hour podcast and I'm going to love it. I could just go and turn another one on, but also I kind of know how my brain works. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to decompress and kind of just listen to some music for like 45 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever, and just do that instead of going straight to another podcast, because it decompresses. That's kind of part of, it's all part of moderation.
Yeah.
And if you don't know your type of media moderation versus, moderation of your body and, that kind of thing. But if you don't know, if you can't moderate the content you watch and yourself, how are you going to do that for your child?
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to be intentional about the media they consume? Because I know for me, we didn't have the internet growing up for most of my life until I was like a teenager. And I'm really glad we didn't have it growing up, because we made like home movies and stuff and whatever. And I couldn't imagine those being posted online. That was crazy. I mean, my sisters were super great. And like, I think I've already stated this on another show, but like they would make little like montages and stuff like that, or like little skits or blah, blah, blah. Just having them back in the day, having access to like, the internet and posting them would be like, I'm glad that wasn't an option. I'm glad it was just stuff we showed our family and friends.
Yep.
And I think that's part of how it should be, honestly. I mean, there's so much data and stuff out there that says like, and I'm not against kids using tablets or whatever, but I would say like everything in moderation. Like say, hey, you get an hour on video games today. All right, cool. That's fine with me. Or go outside and spend an hour out there and then come back and we'll go do something else or whatever.
Yeah.
And not everybody has that ability, but again, if you can't control the moderation you have as your own human self, how are you going to do that for another human being?
Yeah.
It's a lot to think about.
Yeah. And it's difficult to do nowadays to regulate yourself, to regulate your consumption of media, to regulate your children's consumption of media. It's so very difficult to do nowadays, but it's so very important, in part because of the social contagion thing we talked about earlier, but also I don't think the media landscape, the social media landscape that we have today is by accident. I think it's very much by design. I think the idea is that if we as people are just mindless consumers of media, then we'll mindlessly parrot whatever those in power want us to believe.
Interesting. I think that's where it all circles too, honestly. I mean, being independent about what you think.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Critical thinking, independent thought is so very important because the people who control all this media are trying to take that away from us because they don't see us as individuals. They don't see us as people. They see us as dollar signs, as workers to be exploited. And they're intentionally building this oppressive social media landscape that sucks people in to uncontrolled media consumption so as to rob them of their critical thinking.
And I think part of it is, yes, there's definitely, they are trying to do that, but I also feel like a lot of it also is unintentional in a way. Like, I agree a lot of it is intentional, but I also feel like it might be like, oh, hey, this is how we make a ton of money. This company's making a ton of money off their users, like TikTok. Let's try to copy that. And so YouTube and Instagram come and fill that void in so that they can get the same thing. But with that with that comes a side effect of the contagion that we're talking about, how your attention span's going down all the way. And I can't wait to see the kids that I know and the nephews and nieces that I have, to see where their attention goes as they go into like their late teens and into the 20s, where they're gonna, how are they gonna want to do what I do and listen to podcasts? Are they gonna consume other media? How are they gonna treat it? My mind goes there, and I'm fascinated to see what comes of it. This generation that's Gen A or whatever. I don't know what they call them.
I think it's called Gen Alpha now.
Yeah, A or Alpha. Yeah.
After Gen Z.
They just went back to the beginning of the alphabet. What's going on?
Or we can't of course forget about that Canadian generation, Gen Z.
Oh yeah, Gen Z. Can't forget about Gen Z. Those crazy, wacky people, which are now at voting age. So be prepared, everyone.
Yeah,
which have been at voting age for a while. So just yeah, but I think you're right in the sense of, I think a lot of it, but I think especially in the sense of, I mean, when you look at the attention spans of kids, when you look at how they're being raised, I worry there's a lot of things that they won't be able to, frankly, honestly experience, because there's a lot of cool stuff out there that they just won't have any interest in, like a game or a movie or a show or a podcast, that I'm like, oh, this is some really good stuff. I hope they find this eventually, or I can show them, or that happens. But I feel like there's going to be a lot of kids out there, maybe not necessarily the ones the ones we interact with our friends and family and stuff, but other kids as well, where they're like, oh, I'm not interested in that because it's too long, or it's not engaging enough, or maybe as us, the older generation, can sway their opinion, David, by showing them amazing media like Walk Like a Camel,
Yeah.
And that's, I think, where this topic goes naturally, because
Camel walk?
No, yeah.
I mean, and
everything goes back to that.
I mean, you continue a discussion long enough, and eventually you're going to circle around to camel walk
and dive back into the barrel of camel walk. But I think the point of it is,
so are we gonna?
No, we're not going to talk about camel walk.
Are we going to produce a follow-up video that's the camel walk iceberg?
It's an upside down triangle, David.
Okay. Sorry. That.
But I think it's important to have, like, going back to Netflix, going back to Hollywood, going back to all these things that are trying to, for the convenience of the company, get rid of these things or take down stuff for their sake, but not for the sake of the future generation. There's so many things on the internet that were on TV at one point that you can't find anymore. Like, there's tons of compilations on YouTube you can find of commercials from, the 80s, 90s, 70s. And there are people will go through them, and all the comments are like, holy cow, I remember watching this as a kid, or whoa, do you remember those toys? Those were awesome. Those are all like gone nowadays. and there's no sense of preservation. The video game industry, like we've mentioned, is a great example of this. There's a nonprofit organization that is going through and trying to archive all of this history of video games which started in the 70s and 60s, very, very, very early stuff, and then all the way to modern day. And that is they are trying so hard, and multiple people are, to trying to archive this stuff in documentaries. If you're interested, David, in further like video game documentaries, NoClip on YouTube, they're called NoClip. They do wonderful documentaries. They've done ones on Half-Life, on like a bunch of Elder Scrolls stuff, a bunch of different random indie games. Highly recommend those guys. But I recommend NoClip because they are very much so really dedicated to doing that and just preserving the history of like that medium. Hollywood does it all the time with the stuff they want to do. And I feel like that's really awesome. But I feel like with other mediums and music especially, what's not easily accessible will eventually be lost at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And unless people resort to stuff like piracy, like Darker and Black that we've already mentioned, Monster. Even stuff like Death Note at one point was kind of hard to find.
Yeah.
And like anime and movies and film, there's so many things out there that just cool stuff humans create that is sadly lost and gone with the wind.
Yeah.
So hopefully save your media, man. Invest in DVDs and Blu-rays while you can, and kind of screen record some of them TikToks you really, really go back to,
Yes.
That's what I would say. And is there anything you would, like if you had somebody in front of you, David, and they said, hey, what's the best, like you can recommend anything you want, but like what's some of the things you would recommend that is kind of lost to people today that doesn't really get a lot of attention anymore? It could be an album, film, TV show, movie, whatever you want. Pick one. Pick one or two or three.
Let's see. I think there's a ton of music that is so cool. Just, it's not for everyone, but I think the late 80s, early 90s, I think is the best is the kind of the time period I'm looking at here. There's a lot of music that is just very niche. No one is making anything like that now, and even then, not very many people were doing anything like this stuff. And I would like to see people kind of go back to some of that, find some fresh inspiration, basically, because a lot of things that are coming out nowadays in the music realm sound the same, And I don't want to be one of those like old codgers like modern music sucks. Everything from when I was a kid is great, but everything that after that just sucks. I don't want to be like that.
We had it good back in the day, Sonny.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to be like that. But at the same time, nowadays it seems like a lot of stuff that comes out, it sounds very bland, very the same. Even the stuff that people are like, you can tell they're trying to be creative, it doesn't sound all that creative. So there's a lot of awesome and quirky music from, the time in between what everyone, knows of as the classics and now. Kind of stuff that gets overlooked. I think a good example of something that people could actually look up if they're interested would be early post-rock.
Oh, okay.
So bands like Cul-de-sac, like Pram.
Pram?
Yes, Pram.
Let me look that up. Pram. How do you spell that? P-R-A-M?
P-R-A-M.
Are they a British man?
I actually don't know. I don't think they're British.
Really? Pram artist. A band. Okay. Oh, okay. Gotcha. British post-rock, David. You're wrong.
Oh, they are British. Okay.
Because pram is like a stroller in English.
Yes. That is what it is.
Sorry. It's like, you're wrong. You're wrong, David.
I mean, honestly.
Let me correct you and just say they were British. Post-rock band formed in Birmingham, England in 88. Go check them out, guys.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So, Pram, any other bands or something like that you want to recommend? From that era that comes to your mind?
Let's see. Another band that I would recommend. This is definitely not for everyone. This is for people who are looking for... This is the more advanced level of niche music. You know, if you're feeling adventurous, I would recommend a Japanese band called Boris.
Boris.
And they're actually still together. They're actually still making music, but just they're more into like the metal side of things. But just the amount of range they cover in their discography is frankly quite amazing. Like, they go from making like sludgy drone music where they're holding out one like sludgy overdriven guitar note for like 30 seconds at a time to writing like pop rock songs, to writing weird electronic music that doesn't sound like anything else. It's crazy the breadth of styles that they've covered. Okay. And if you're willing to adventure into something that's definitely not for everyone, I would definitely give them a listen.
You know what is also not for everybody, but I've discovered recently, is a band called Depeche Mode. Have you heard of these guys?
Oh, yes.
So I was kind of weirded out because they were playing that on the speaker at work at one moment, and I'm like, what are we listening to? This is weird. It's like a very, I don't know how to describe them. They're very much ethereal rock, but it's like kind of...
They're a new wave band.
They're new wave. Okay,
they're a new wave band.
Yeah. Very niche. But I discovered them recently, and I was listening to a few albums going through the discography. It's not for everybody. It's very weird at times for me personally because I don't listen to this stuff. But kind of just going out of my comfort zone and looking at that has kind of opened my eyes to be like, what else is there to listen to?
I'm surprised you've never heard of Depeche Mode.
Never. No.
They're quite a popular band.
Yeah.
They've maybe not on the level as say Justin Bieber or Taylor Swift. Sorry.
Why did you laugh after that? You're like, oh wait.
I'm just feeling loopy. Just feeling a little loopy. Okay. But yeah, I'm honestly a little surprised that you've never heard.
I've never heard of them, but it was my boss had it playing at work, and I'm like,
what you should look up though? Is you should look up Johnny Cash's cover of their song "Personal Jesus."
Personal Jesus?
Yeah, "Personal Jesus" was one of their hits.
Okay.
From back in the day, and Johnny Cash actually covered it.
Interesting. I'm gonna look that up. Johnny Cash, Personal Jesus, and Depeche Mode. All right. Well, if you don't have anything else further to suggest, if I may, I have a few films that I think not everybody will like, but I feel like they're good. They're a good time, and they're older films. They're from the 30s and 40s, but I feel like especially that era is really kind of important to go through because a lot of Frank Capra stuff was really good, which I'm about to mention, as well as, Jimmy Stewart, Errol Flynn. A lot of kids don't even know who those names are nowadays, but I would recommend that these films because they do stand the test of time in many different ways. The first one is a comedy called Arsenic and Old Lace. Have you seen this movie, David?
I have not, no.
1944, you had Frank Capra directing, who did It's a Wonderful Life. You have Cary Grant in there. And I believe you also had people like Boris Karloff as a cameo at one moment who played Frankenstein, and the guy who played Igor's in there. It's one of those screwball comedies, and it has a really crazy concept. This guy has two aunts that are who belong in an asylum, to be quite frank, but he doesn't want them to go there. He wants to take care of them, and he's really good about it. He's a good guy, and he's trying to like, him and his like girlfriend are trying to get married, and it's like she's like waiting on him, and he's like really scared to, you know, to get married. And then like it's all about them trying to like the ants are like crazy, and so they try to like poison a guy at one moment, and he tries to prevent it. It's a crazy comedy, and it's really fun. And yeah, it's black and white. It's 4:3, but dude, kind of look past that and just give it a chance because it's really, really funny. It's called Arsenic and Old Lace. It's really great. The next one I would recommend is the 1940 classic, The Seahawk, with Errol Flynn, who played, you know, that wonderful Robin Hood back in the day. And just Errol Flynn was a great actor, you know, and it's kind of good to go back and see what Hollywood and what media was like back then. Because there ain't no TikTok in the Errol Flynn days.
Nope.
So the film was by Michael Curtiz, and it stars Errol Flynn, and it's about this guy who, it's basically like a pirate movie and whatnot, and it's about an English privateer who defends his nation's interests on the eve of the launch of the Spanish Armada, so whatever that means. So, but I remember watching, I never finished it, but I remember watching it, and it's quite an interesting, like, fun watch, and it's slow. It's not as fun as Arsenic and Old Lace, but it's like an action movie of the day. And finally, and one thing that I think everybody should see, regardless of your interests, I think, especially if you live in America, and even if you don't, is Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Have you ever seen this movie, David?
No, I have not.
Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, 1939, another Frank Capra film. Stars Jimmy Stewart, and you got Gene Arthur in there as well. And dude, we got to watch it. Sit down and watch it sometime because it's so good. It's about this young senator from... oh, shoot, I don't remember the state, but he's young, he's naive. I think somebody loses an election and he gets into the position of that senator and he goes to Washington and his name's Mr. Smith and it's Jimmy Stewart. And he goes there and he discovers the corruption and utter lack of care for the country.
Yeah.
And it's very great to watch. It's it involves a filibuster at one moment in the film, and it just is it's fascinating. And it just goes to show like the power of the people, the power of the government, how they're supposed to serve the people, but they're not. They're serving themselves and their self-interest. And it's very poignant, especially today. But even back then, you know, it's been going on for a long time. Corruption's always been there. And this film highlights that, but also shows like how good can triumph over evil. So Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, I would highly recommend. I know those are kind of like more popular films of that era, but just go watch those and then kind of see what else is there if you like them. And if you don't, no worries. There's other stuff. There's plenty more out there. Go listen to Depeche Mode and crank the Black Celebration on as you're watching watching Arsenic and Old Lace and have a great time. So anyway, but I think for me that's what I would recommend.
Yeah. Oh, you know that reminds me of have you ever heard of the band Pink Floyd?
Yeah. Never really heard a whole lot of their music, but I've heard some.
Firstly, the album Dark Side of the Moon, one of the greatest albums ever released.
Okay. Like
in my mind, it's just about as close as you can get to a perfect album. The only flaw I could possibly find in it is that I find one of the sound effects that starts off the song Time to be unnecessary.
Okay.
Like basically the entire album flows from song to song without any breaks, except for in the middle where back in the day you would have had to flip the disc over.
Yeah.
So those are the only points where something actually, so that and the end of the album is the only point where anything actually comes to a stop. So what this album does is there's the opening song, and then there's a trippy, freaky sounding like synth sort of interlude that sounds like basically synthesizers mimicking a high-speed chase. Like it's almost like a soundtrack to a high-speed chase in a film. And it ends with this deafening synthesized crash.
Oh.
And then as the crash fades out, the song time begins. And there's this really annoying part where the flow is broken and it starts off with a recording of a bunch of clocks that they found at an antique shop, and they got them all to chime all at once, basically. And it's a cool sound, but it doesn't takes away from the album, because what would have been way cooler, because once the clocks die out, it starts with this like little like clacking noise that just tick 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 that just kind of builds and builds and builds and builds, and it's really cool. And it's like, if they had just left that clock part out and like the synthesized explosion fades out, then you have that little click click clack click 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 clack click that builds into time. That would have been perfect. And you probably have absolutely zero context to understand what I'm talking about. But let me tell you, I say all of this to say that album is so great, so amazing, so close to perfect, that this is the only critique I have of at all. And it's absurd that I've even spent as much time thinking about that one particular flaw that I have and analyzing in such a way that I have. But the only reason I have is because that's literally the only critique I have with the album. Yeah. It's otherwise perfect, a masterpiece. But what's interesting to me is I've never tried to do it, but apparently if you want to go down the a media rabbit hole, apparently Dark Side of the Moon thematically follows The Wizard of Oz.
Thematically follows The Wizard of Oz.
So you're supposed to be able to watch The Wizard of Oz and have Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon album be the soundtrack of the movie.
Is that why the album covers the prism and all that? Because of the color? Like the color transition from sepia to color in the film?
I don't know.
Is that what that referencing? Is that referencing that?
I don't think it's I don't think it's intentional, but a lot of people do.
That's real. And how do you know this is supposed to go with it? Have somebody said it, or
this is just a thing I've heard?
Oh, okay.
This is just a theory that people have.
Oh,
that somehow they're supposed to go together.
Really?
There's nothing that officially there's nothing I've heard officially that backs this up, but just talking about old movies and niche music kind of brought this to my mind, and I think it's fascinating. If anyone has the time to try it out, It's kind of cool.
And if you're a young person and you never seen The Wizard of Oz, you gotta watch The Wizard of Oz.
Oh,
and this might be a great gateway drug into that film. Honestly, that sounds kind of cool. I would like to try that out sometime. Wizard of Oz, and you start the Dark Side of the Moon album.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Now, do you have to pause at some point, or
that I don't know?
It's just like thematically in certain moments. This is what it's about.
I'd have to. I
gotta do some research on this. This sounds awesome. Yeah. Wow. Huh. Because that's the album that like you see tons and tons of people, especially young people, wear the like album cover on a T-shirt, and you're like, have they listened to Pink Floyd? Do they know what it is?
That's one of those things where you can buy a shirt with that album cover on it at Walmart, and I guarantee you 90+% of the people who are wearing a Dark Side of the Moon shirt have never listened to it.
You know what people also should listen to? Is Alien Ant Farm. You've heard of Creed, but you should listen to some Alien Ant Farm.
This is like the next level.
This is the next level.
Terrible butt rock.
So they're butt rock, but I mean, dude, how can you not like? Everybody loves Smooth Criminal, but even like movies and stuff is kind of cool. I'm like, it's not really my forte, but I was like diving into it one day, the album, and I'm like, you know what? This ain't bad. It's not my thing, but I can see why people like it. I kind of like Alien Ant Farm. I can tell you don't.
No, I absolutely do not like
Creed?
Alien Ant Farm.
Yeah, they're coming back, David. Creed. That was something we never released, but we had a discussion about. I was telling David how Creed is coming back in this year of 2024 for like a tour with like Three Doors Down and all these other bands, and he kept repeating over and over as I'm killing him. He's like, Creed, 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 you say? Creed.
I was flabbergasted.
You were
to say the least.
flabbergasted to say the least. You're like, Creed's coming back? Why? I'm like, I don't know.
Kill it with fire.
Kill it with fire. Burn the ant farm to the ground. So anyway, is there anything else you would like to mention? What final thoughts do you have of media, David? Lost media, physical media, anything we've discussed today? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I would say just there's a whole world of media out there beyond what streaming services offer. And yeah, I would say that not only is it beneficial to break the cycle of doom scrolling that we fall into with a little bit of good old-fashioned intentionality, there's just a lot of stuff out there that can, really challenge you, really challenge the way you think, make you, give you perspectives that you didn't, that you couldn't see otherwise, and I think moving forward, us as a society, I think need to be doing a lot more of that, taking an honest look at how we spend our time. What kind of media are we consuming? How are we consuming said media? Because if we don't change our habits, I think we're really playing into the plan of the powers that be, basically. They want us subservient. They want us devoid of critical thinking.
There are very bad people and actors out there that are behind the scenes, that run the show in many different forms in our society, that want people to be subservient.
Yeah. And part of that process, part of that transformation is this mindless consumption of whatever they put in front of our faces.
Mm-hmm. It's look, you also got to, like, as a Christian, you got to be intentional about consuming God's word and spending some time with him and, being in that mindset of Christ. I'm not saying that with media it's the same thing, but it's about intentionality, being intentional about your time and enjoying the time you have, because we're not going to live forever. And you're probably never going to consume all of the media.
Yeah.
All your base will not belong to you.
No.
But enjoy what you find. And I think, honestly, yes, algorithms nowadays are so subservient to the big company they're created by, and they're very addicting. But also, before people were scrolling TikTok, they were just clicking what was recommended on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, oh, what's that video? Oh, what's that video? What's that video? And it just, we all were part of that at one point. And now it's just evolved into something else, into much more unhealthier form.
Yeah, the TikToks and the Instagram Reels are just the newest evolution of that same thing.
And there's better things you could do than doom scrolling those things, or even clicking on the recommended things on YouTube. Go read a book. Go listen to an audiobook. Go read the Bible, bro.
Yeah, it's
there's other things you can do with your time.
As Christians, and speaking to those in the audience who are believers, mm-hmm. we cannot stress how important it is to be in God's word.
Yes.
Because God's word is not just good information to know. It feeds your soul.
Yes.
It feeds your soul. And honestly, you need your soul to be fed with his word if you're going to survive in this world.
Yes. Because once you have that core and that foundation set and you know where you're going, it's once you know where you're going and you keep having that as your identity is centered in Christ, there's very little that can come between you and God. There's many things that will try and maybe even succeed at some points, but you're the one to stop it, and you provide the intentionality behind it. because God's always there. He's always knocking. You have to get up and go to the door and open it and for him to come in. So, and I think with that, that's a good place to end today's episode of the Snarp Fangle Podcast. Thank you so much, people, for taking your valuable time of media consumption and to listen to this show. We really appreciate you and appreciate your time. And if you want to support us, just like the video and subscribe, as they say on YouTube, or eventually.
No, the algorithm.
No, the algorithm. I mean, in all seriousness, sometimes, hey, on the side note, sometimes the algorithm can be really nice, David. I mean, I found some of my most favorite YouTubers have just randomly been recommended them in the algorithm, just from similar interests.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you like video essays, then I've followed them, So, what was that meme where it's like the Indians looking at the ground and it's like, oh, white man been here. How no? Video essay. And with that, we will end for now. So thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful day. And be intentional of what you do. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.